Hey guys, welcome back to more Malicious Compliance Awful Boss Stories. In this Ripe Stories Reddit video, what would you do if your boss forced you to choose between your family's dream vacation and your career? That is the exact 2 AM ultimatum I faced. I had 6 years of perfect performance, but my new manager wanted to prove who was the boss. So I officially resigned right there on the phone, but the story does not end there. And what I did next triggered an absolute corporate meltdown. Let's dive right into the video. The first one is from r/MaliciousCompliance and is titled, "You're gonna cancel my vacation leave because I got sick? Okay then." So this is gonna be in the same vein as a lot of other posts here, but it still sucks that it happened to me. So for context, my vacation leave credits expire next month, so I requested 5 days off hoping to go home to my family and get some rest. Well, sadly, only one of them got approved and it is in the middle of the week, the reasoning being that we are short-staffed, as usual, and I suddenly had a very bad flare-up of arthritis in the beginning of last week. I could barely sit up, and walking up the stairs to get to my workstation, I work at home, is just out of the question. So I took a day off and my boss said, "Okay, that is fine, but we are going to have to cancel your vacation leave since you're going to rest anyway." It's not like I had any rest when I was writhing on my bed in pain. Spite empowered me and I managed to get to a hospital with the last of my strength and my boyfriend's help to get my fluids drained. I felt a lot better, but I was in so much pain in the beginning that my doctor seemed to take pity on me and gave me 5 days rest, and he told me to just contact him if I need some more. I was only planning to rest it out for a day or two more, but I ended up having a whole week, or more if I feel like it, to myself, feeling much better. I was even able to go home. The best thing is that it's all paid since I also have plenty of sick leave credits left, and there's nothing they can do about that. And the next one is from r/MaliciousCompliance and is titled, "Work on Vacation or Resign." Okay boss, I quit. And by the way guys, if you enjoy the Malicious Compliance stories, please don't forget to like the video and post a comment if you want to support me. Thank you so much for your help. So for context, I worked as a senior operations coordinator for a logistics company in Oman. Been there for almost 6 years at that point, and yeah, the job was demanding, but I was good at it. I handled the coordination between our regional offices, managed emergency logistics situations, and basically kept things running smoothly when everything else went wrong. Which in logistics, let me tell you, happens more often than you would think. My boss, who we will call him Boss, had been with the company for about 8 months when this happened. He came in as the new regional director after the previous director retired. The old director was brilliant, he understood that happy employees do better work, and he trusted his team. Unfortunately, Boss was the complete opposite. From day one, Boss made it clear that he was here to shake things up and prove himself to corporate. He started implementing all these new policies without consulting anyone who actually did the work, mandatory daily reports that took an hour to complete, random spot checks on our work emails, required attendance at meetings that could have been emails, you know the type, but the real issue was his attitude towards time off. Boss had this philosophy that taking vacation meant you were not committed to the company. He would also make snide comments when people submitted leave requests. He once told someone in our team that requesting 2 weeks off showed a lack of dedication. The guy was getting married in another country to someone he had been engaged to for 2 years. Now, I'm usually not someone who takes a lot of time off. In my 6 years there, I had maybe used half my vacation days. I saved them up because I'm the kind of person who likes having that cushion. But my wife had been planning this trip for months. Her sister was getting married in India, and it was gonna be this massive family event. The wedding celebrations alone would take like a week, plus we were planning to spend 2 more weeks traveling around to visit family members flying in from different countries. Her family only gets together like this like once every few years, since they are scattered across 3 continents. I submitted my vacation request 4 months in advance, 4 months, and I followed every protocol. filled out the forms, got approval from HR, and made sure that my backup coordinator was trained on all my active projects. I even created detailed handover documents for everything that might come up while I was gone. I really did everything by the book. 2 months before the trip, though, I reminded my boss about my upcoming leave. He just grunted and said fine, and 1 month before I sent another reminder email with all my handover documents attached, and he replied with a thumbs up emoji. And then, the week before I was supposed to leave, I had a sit-down meeting with boss and my backup. We went through everything, every single project, every contact, every potential issue. My backup was solid. He had been with the company for 3 years and knew the systems inside and out. My boss sat there the whole time, looking bored, checking his phone, and at the end of the meeting my boss looked up and asked if I knew that I was leaving during a busy period. I pointed out that I'd submitted this request like 4 months ago and it had been approved by both him and HR. He just shrugged and said he hoped nothing major came up. I should have known right then that something was off here, so I left for India. The wedding celebrations are incredible, my wife's family goes all out, there are events every single day, ceremonies, parties, traditional rituals. I'm having the time of my life, to be honest. I'm not checking my work mail because, well, I'm on vacation in another country. As well as at a family wedding. But then 6 days into my 3-week vacation, my phone rings at 2 AM local time, and it is the boss. I'm half asleep when I answer. Boss starts talking immediately, no greeting or anything. There's an emergency situation apparently with one of our major shipments. A container got held up at customs and the client is furious, and he needs me to handle it right now. I'm confused and still trying to wake up, and I tell him that my backup should be handling this. That is literally why we have backup coordinators. Boss says my backup does not have the relationship with this particular client and he needs me to call them and sort it out. I explain that it is 2 AM where I am right now. I am on approved vacation in another country at a family wedding. Surely this can wait until morning or my backup can handle the initial crisis management. But that is when my boss drops the ultimatum. His exact words were something like, "You need to choose right now whether you want to handle this or whether you even want to work here anymore. If I'm not willing to help during a crisis, maybe you should think about whether this job is right for you." Well, I'm fully awake now. I ask him to clarify, is he seriously asking me to either handle a work emergency during my approved vacation at 2 AM in another country or resign? And he says, "That is what leadership looks like. Making sacrifices. Being available when the company needs you. If I cannot do that, then maybe I'm not the right fit." Well, now I am angry. 6 years with this company, 6 years of going above and beyond, 6 years of rarely taking time off, and 6 years of covering for other people during their vacations. And this guy, who's been here for 8 months, is giving me this ultimatum at 2 AM during my approved vacation. Here is where the malicious compliance kicks in. I tell him, fine, I will handle it. And by the way, guys, let me know in the comments, if you would have been in OP's position, what would you have done in this situation? I mean, this boss is absolutely ridiculous, and what he's requesting here is absolutely not reasonable, if you ask me. So let me know what you would have done in the comments. So OP then further said, since he's requiring me to work during my approved vacation, I need him to understand what that means. I'm logging this as work time, I'll be claiming overtime for working in the middle of the night in a foreign country, and since my approved vacation is now compromised by required work, I will need replacement vacation days scheduled immediately upon my return. However, there's silence on the phone, and then my boss says that I'm being ridiculous, that I should just make the call and fix the problem. I tell him no, this is how it works. If I'm on vacation, I'm on vacation. If I'm working, and need to be compensated accordingly. Which one does he want? Boss gets angry now. He says I'm making this difficult on purpose, just handle the emergency and we will sort this out later. But I tell him that's not how this works. I need written confirmation from him right now via email that he's requiring me to work during my approved vacation and that I'll be compensated with overtime pay and replacement vacation days. Otherwise, I'm not doing it. He now loses it at me, starts yelling about how I'm being insubordinate, how I'm refusing to help the company, and how this is exactly the kind of attitude that makes him question whether I should continue working there. So I say, okay, if that's how he wants to play it, then I quit. Just consider this my resignation effective immediately. I will send a formal email in the morning. There's this long silence on the phone. Then my boss starts backtracking. He says he didn't mean it like that. He was just stressed about the situation and he needs me to understand how important this is. But I cut him off. I tell him he gave me an ultimatum and I made my choice. I'm not interested in working for someone who does not respect approved time off or their employees. I will send my formal resignation to HR in the morning with boss copied. Then I hung up. My wife is awake now asking what happened. I explained the whole thing. She is furious on my behalf but also worried. This is our primary income, we have a mortgage, bills, life and so on. But I'm surprisingly calm at the moment because I realized something. I have 6 years of excellent performance reviews. I have relationships with clients that my boss doesn't have. I got institutional knowledge that my backup, as good as he is, does not have, and most importantly, I've followed every single rule about requesting and preparing for this vacation. I don't sleep the rest of the night though. And then, around 4 AM, the panic sets in. What did I just do? I quit my job at 2 AM while on vacation. Yeah, boss was wrong, but what if the company sides with him? What if they just accept my resignation and I come home to unemployment? I maybe have like 3 months of savings. Also, the job market for operation coordinators in Oman is not exactly booming. My wife finds me on the balcony at sunrise spiraling. She reminds me that I did everything right, I followed every rule, I got documentation. If they are a decent company, they will see that. If they are not, did I really want to keep working there anyway? She is right, but it doesn't stop the anxiety. I spent the next few hours writing the most professional resignation email I've ever written. So I outlined the situation calmly and factually. I mentioned that I submitted my vacation request 4 months in advance, got approval from both boss and HR, prepared detailed handover documents and even trained my backup, and I explained that boss called me at 2 AM local time during my approved vacation and gave me an ultimatum. Handle a work emergency immediately, or he questioned whether I should continue working there. I state that when I requested proper compensation for working during approved vacation, including overtime and replacement days, he became hostile and suggested I was not a good fit for the company. I decided to resign rather than work for someone who does not respect company vacation policies. I copy HR, boss, the COO, and the VP of operations on the email. I knew the VP personally from a major project we had collaborated on 2 years ago, where I had basically saved his neck when a shipment crisis threatened a huge contract, and I figured if I was going down, I wanted people above boss to know why. The VP had always been fair, and I hoped he would at least read my side of the story, and then I tried to go back to sleep. I don't succeed though. The next morning my inbox explodes. HR is asking for an emergency call and the VP's assistant is requesting a meeting. Boss has sent 3 increasingly frantic emails walking back everything he said, claiming there was a misunderstanding, saying he never told me to resign. My backup coordinator messages me privately saying the office is in chaos. I ignore all of it for a few hours. I'm at a family breakfast event and despite everything, I'm going to try to enjoy it. My wife's family doesn't know what's happening and I want to keep it that way. Finally, around noon, I agreed to a call with HR and the VP of operations. The VP speaks first. He is apologetic and clearly angry, though not at me. He asks me to walk him through exactly what happened. So I do, calmly, factually, with dates and time, and I mention the 4-month advance notice, the approvals, the preparation, the 2 AM ultimatum, the request for proper compensation that my boss refused, and HR confirms they have records of all my vacation paperwork. Everything was properly submitted and approved, and they also mentioned that company policy explicitly states that employees on approved vacation should not be contacted for work matters except in genuine life or death emergencies. A customs delay, while inconvenient, is not life or death. The VP asks if I'm willing to hold off on making my resignation final. I tell him honestly that I'd been considering leaving anyway, due to the boss's management style, but I'm open to discussion depending on what changes might be made, and he asks me to give him until the end of my vacation. I still have 2 weeks left and he promises a full investigation and assures me my resignation won't be processed until we talk again. I agree, figuring I got nothing to lose at this point anyway, and the next 2 weeks are strange. I try to enjoy the rest of the wedding celebrations and family time, but my phone keeps buzzing with messages from coworkers. Apparently, my boss tried to spin the situation as me abandoning the company during a crisis, but my backup coordinator, bless him, forwarded the VP all the handover documents I'd created, and he also apparently told HR and the VP that boss had actively prevented him from handling the customs issue, insisting it had to be me specifically. The customs situation, by the way, got resolved within like 4 hours of the boss's call to me. My backup contacted the customs broker, realized the paperwork had the wrong HS code because of boss's new documentation system that nobody had been properly trained on, corrected it, and the shipment cleared by the end of the business day. The client never even knew that there was an issue, and the total non-emergency that boss had blown out of proportion. Here's what I found out later from the backup coordinator. Boss had implemented a new documentation process like 3 weeks before my vacation without telling the operations team or the shipping department. He sent one email about it that most people missed because he sent it at 6 p.m. on a Friday. The shipment got held up because the paperwork was wrong, thanks to his new process that nobody knew about or understood. So not only had boss created the emergency himself with his poorly implemented policy change, he had then tried to force me to fix his mistake at 2 a.m. during my approved vacation and refused to properly compensate me for working during vacation. And then essentially told me to quit when I pushed back. 2 days before I'm supposed to fly back to Oman, I get another call from the VP and he thanks me for my patience, and then he tells me that after a thorough investigation, boss has been let go. The VP mentions that boss had been on thin ice for months and several other team members had filed complaints about his management style and HR had been building a case. My situation was simply the final undeniable proof they needed, and then comes the interesting part. So basically, the VP offers me my job back with a significant raise and a promotion to Senior Operations Manager. It is a newly created position that will put me second in command in the region, reporting directly to whoever they hire as the new regional director. It is not the boss's job, but it is a substantial step up with much better pay and more autonomy. I'm actually stunned. I tell him I need some time to think about it. He understands, gives me a few days to decide, and I spend the rest of my time in India actually enjoying myself, but also thinking hard about this decision. My wife and I have long conversations about it. The pay increase would be substantial and the role would be challenging but rewarding, and the VP had shown that he was willing to take action when management crossed lines. But there's also the question of whether I want to stay with a company that hired boss in the first place. That let his behavior continue for 8 months before taking action. In the end, I decided to negotiate. I told the VP I'm interested, but I got some conditions. I want the promised pay increase plus an additional performance bonus structure. I want a clear reporting structure that gives me autonomy over my team, and I want a written commitment that approved vacation time will be respected and employees will not be contacted except for genuine emergencies during vacation, with genuine emergency clearly defined in policy, and I want it all in writing. The VP agrees to all of it, and we spend several days negotiating the details while I am finishing up my vacation. By the time I get back to Oman, I have a new contract that's honestly better than I could have imagined. My first day back as the new Senior Operations Manager is surreal. The team is thrilled. They had all been miserable under their old boss, and my backup coordinator jokes that I took the longest route to a promotion he has ever seen. I've been in the Senior Operations Manager role for over a year now, and the team is performing better than ever and the morale is up. We have actually decreased our emergency situations because I implemented proper training and documentation processes before rolling out any changes. It's funny how that works. The new regional director they hired is fantastic. She actually trusts her team and respects work-life balance. It's like night and day compared to the old boss. My wife still jokes that boss did me the biggest favor of my career. And I tell her that's one way to look at it, but I would have preferred a less stressful path to promotion. And yeah guys, I would say that this story really shows how toxic corporate work culture can be nowadays. I mean, this boss really thought that OP needs to be reachable 24/7, even on PTO, and if a multi-million-dollar logistics company is so fragile that it will literally fall apart because one senior coordinator is simply on vacation, then the company's business model is fundamentally broken. You should not have to be the single point of failure. Reddit comment number 1 said, "Your boss gave you a choice and then got mad when you chose. You did literally everything an employee is supposed to do: 4 months notice, HR approval, manager approval, and so on. If a company still cannot function without waking you up at 2 AM in another country during a family wedding, then that is a management failure, not an employee failure." Also, the most important part here is that you did not refuse to help out of laziness, you simply asked for the bare minimum, which is written confirmation, overtime, and replacement vacation days. That is completely reasonable if you ask me. Also, the boss wanted all the benefits of you working while still pretending that you were on vacation, so the company did not even have to compensate you. And the next one is a malicious compliance story, which is titled "Boss Tried to be Slick, Changing My Employment, Ends Up in Disaster." So to give some background for this story, I was working as a legal assistant at a small law firm, but started off as the receptionist. This was a job I could get straight out of college, while I give myself some time to adjust to adulting life and getting ready to apply to graduate and law school. He fired a co-worker over her asking for a higher raise and immediately told me that I was gonna take over. The law firm has 8 employees and has a very high turnover rate, and I didn't realize until a couple months ago. My boss is a stereotypical boomer and gloats about how he was in the army, how he is a ladies' man, even though his wife is literally our office manager, and doesn't train his employees, even though he forces his employees to sign a contract saying they will have to pay $2,500 if they don't complete 1 year. Over the past months, he has tried to say that my work is terrible, even though I used all of his templates and had to correct him with information I received from the court on how to do these exact family pleadings, and I've closed cases that have been with us for years in the span of just 1 to 3 months. However, still, he blames me for being rude to clients, even though the clients told him it was not me and was another coworker who he showed favoritism to, and constantly asks me if I found the right man. Would I be with that man after he met my girlfriend at the firm's annual holiday party? And there's a lot more, but it's just too much to write, but overall he hated anything about me, and my coworkers would often have to vouch for me because he would take out his anger on me. Because of this, I made always sure to send emails of our conversations and clarify things in order to keep track of all the shortcomings and issues. I even had a meeting with my office manager and documented the fact that I wasn't trained by sending a follow-up email and screenshotting an email where they made me train a new person 1 week after I started. Someone please tell me if this looks like adequate training. And 3 weeks ago he changed my contract to being a non-essential employee and told my coworker, before she quit, that he lessened my hours because of my poor work and anything I did could be sent by mail or email. He often rushes through his work and leaves a lot of loopholes in his contract, so cue my malicious compliance. The contract said that I would be a non-essential employee, and by the way he wrote it, he kept phone calls at 0.5 of an hour, but I would get paid $15 per call, $45 for each family packet I did, and $15 per email correspondence. So yeah, I did a couple of family pleading packets, but kept my coworkers in the loop, and they told my boss that they were busy with other things and asked if I could make the calls. They know I'm the only one in my household working and felt the contract was terrible. I also asked them how they would read the contract, and they interpreted it in the same way I had. Since I was deemed non-essential and he couldn't be bothered to draft a letter letting me go into the office, I had to send various emails for him to print, and when he would ask for me to place items on his desk, I referenced my contract stating that I was a non-essential employee and could risk a fine/jail time. I ended up making so many calls, always tried to make them as long as possible by asking clients how they are, hearing them complain about what's going on, and how difficult it'll be for them to make payments at this time, and that is when I sent my hours to my office manager. She CC'd my boss and asked to verify hours and explain. I explained and broke it down with my contract, and my boss could not be bothered to go back to his email and asked me to forward the contract. At that point, it took them forever to respond, and I was eagerly awaiting their response. He attempts to spin it back and change the wording of my contract to say each call was only $0.75 and each correspondence was $1.50. This would essentially make my paycheck only less than $100, even though I had originally been paid $15 an hour and had worked 50+ hours in the past 2 weeks. At that point, I sent my resignation and screenshots of all the times I asked how they want the timesheet sent, along with the governor's stay-at-home order for non-essential employees. He attempted to change the story to say that I was an essential employee now, and finally offered to give me a letter, but at that point I'd already sent my resignation. After reading my email referencing the contract, lack of training, and mentioning the conversation with his wife, he conceded, made an agreement that I was leaving on good terms, and is now giving me the wages I deserve. Moral of the story, document everything and follow up. I have a second round interview, so please wish me luck. It's a hard time, but we'll get through it. The next one is another malicious compliance story, and this one is titled, Cannot Take Vacation Time? Okay then. So for context, my mother passed away several years ago, and this is one of her best stories. She worked as the head of the transcription department of a government agency. Whenever she would ask for time off, her boss would refuse her. This went on for years, and her leave just accrued. Well, one day she was about to turn 63 years old, and she walks into her boss's office and tells him that she's giving him 2 years' notice that she will be retiring. He's very confused as to why she is giving so much notice, and then she informed him she will be on vacation for the rest of her employment as she has 2 years of leave accrued, and then walks out the door. And yeah guys, thanks for watching. I will see you again tomorrow.